Getting new patients is hard. You have to convince a bunch of strangers, essentially, to choose your practice over your competition. It's exhausting. And for some, it's a reason for burnout, but it doesn't need to be that way. My guest today helps her clients grow their practices, accelerate the growth of their practices without too much stress, and she's going to tell us how. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group with a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Usually that's what they want anyway, but I just believe that care is better when the provider owns the practice because they get to make all the clinical decisions, all the operational decisions, all the decisions that they think are best for their patients in their own practice, and no one else is whispering in their ear what their agenda is, whether it's a hospital, a health system, other owners in faraway lands, whoever they may be. They're out of the picture. It's just the provider and their patients, and that's what's best. Today, my guest is LynAnn Weaver. LynAnn is the founder and CEO of Healthcare Elevation Partners, which has pioneered the fusion of healthcare leadership, business growth, and high performance coaching. As a former healthcare administrator turned certified high performance coach, LynAnn is dedicated to elevating the success and well being of physicians, healthcare leaders, and organizations. LynAnn has led teams to first in the nation recognition, accelerated patient volume growth of physicians' practices and service lines up to 67%, and has helped clients increase efficiency by 30%, giving them more time to focus on the things and the people most important to them. It all sounds awesome, and we can't wait to dig into it. LynAnn, thanks for coming on Practice Care on New Year's Eve. We're not going to hear this on New Year's Eve, but it's New Year's Eve today as we record this.
It is. It is. And thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. And I've been looking forward to this one for a while. That's true of a lot of episodes, but this one, at least as much so. But any regular listener will know we're not going to start quite there. That was a short bio that I asked for. There's more to your story. So help us get to know you a bit better first.
Yeah. So my story, it really just started from a place of personal realization. And I kept seeing just the reoccurring struggle that our incredible leaders and physicians that I worked with
Mm-hmm.
I kept experiencing. I'd spent well over a decade in healthcare leadership and had been surrounded by some of just the most brilliant minds, people who were achieving what most people would consider the pinnacle of success. But behind the scenes, they all had a little bit different story. There was
Mm-hmm.
so much burnout. Most of the docs that I worked with had strained personal relationships. And there was just this sense that they were trapped in a system that demanded everything of them,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't give them quite as much back. And
Mm-hmm.
after seeing this time and time again with the physicians that I worked alongside with, as well as the leaders, I also started to feel it for myself. And at one point, I started staying really late every night, coming into the office super early, partially because I thought I had to. I didn't realize that once you've actually worked more than 50 hours a week, your level of productivity significantly decreases.
Mm-hmm.
And then partially because I was also having strained relationships in my marriage, and I just frankly wanted to avoid it rather than go home because I didn't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
My health was suffering. I was put on probably 10 or 15 pounds. And at some point, I was like, I can't keep living like this. Everybody that I'm around seems to be going through something similar for the most part, not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of that moment of self-awareness that it made me question everything. It was, why are we taught that success has to come at a cost
Mm-hmm.
of everything that we really value? Why do the very people that really are responsible for healing
Mm-hmm.
our friends, our family, our community are the ones that are struggling so much to take care of themselves and actually be happy?
Mm-hmm.
And that was really what planted the seed for Healthcare Elevation Partners, especially as I started seeing different groups of physicians. And everybody that I worked with, there was this group of people that were just like what I described. And then there was this other group that I'll call our high performers who really were happy at the end of the day. They seemed energized. They were excited. They were boosted. They were doing all of the things that made them happy. And my docs in that group were blowing their pro forma expectations out of the water and really thriving. And so when I started looking at that, I went, there has to be a better way to do this. There's what makes this group so much
Yeah.
different this. We're all facing the same situations, all facing the same circumstances. And so much of it actually just came down to how people were leading, how much self-awareness they had, the
Mhm.
systems and processes that they had in place to manage stress, to work effectively with their teams,
Mhm.
and to manage their burnout.
Mhm.
And so that's really what started Healthcare Elevation Partners, is because I didn't have the tools that I needed to be able to hit all of our targets, which require specific, very targeted strategies around how to grow a practice or a service line or an
Mhm.
entire organization, as well as how to really lead and inspire your teams.
Mhm.
And then how do we do this all without hitting burnout and without having to work, 100 hours a week?
Yeah. Yeah. Which could be a whole series of episodes, right? I mean, there's a number of there's getting more patients, then there's servicing them without killing yourself. There's getting them without killing yourself. Yeah. And so today we're going to focus on that front end part. About getting a more accelerating growth without killing yourself, burning out in the process. And as we were talking about this before we started recording, we talked about planning and marketing planning. And you were saying it's so important. I will of course agree with you. So it's a two-part question. Why is having a plan so important? It kind of almost sounds obvious when you say it, but why is having a marketing plan so important? And when, in your experience, what separates good marketing plans from bad marketing plans? And just for listeners, she's right. I mean, you could be successful in one area and really easy, but if you're killing yourself in another area, we're just going to focus on let's get him in the door first. Let's focus for that today. Let's get him in the door first. But that doesn't happen on its own either. It takes planning. So why is a marketing plan so important and what makes good from bad?
Well, let's start with, why not have a marketing plan? When was the last time you pulled up your GPS and said, I want to go somewhere? Tell me where to go.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen? Do you really think you're going to end up where you really want to be?
Yeah.
And just like a
Yeah. You'll
GPS,
end up somewhere, won't you? Yeah.
you will end up somewhere. It might just start turning you on random right and left turns, and you could
Mhm.
just end up driving in a circle,
Mhm.
which is what we actually see a lot of people do if they
Mhm.
don't plan. Planning starts with clarity, which is the forefront of and really the foundation of everything that
Mhm.
we build upon.
Mhm.
And so without a plan, it's like putting a destination in the GPS without either having a starting point and a destination, or
Mhm.
it's completely throwing the GPS out the window and just driving randomly without an end goal.
Yeah.
Planning helps you find that key target.
Mhm.
Here are the specific numbers that we want to grow. This is the type of patient I want to see. This is the ideal communication style that we have, the key thing that we want to really be treating within our specialty or subspecialty.
Mhm.
And this is also how we want our team to function,
Mhm.
the type of life that we want to have. How
Mhm.
much free time do I want to have so that I can actually go to the gym or focus on my health and nutrition, or spend
Mhm.
time with my spouse or significant other, my family, my friends, going and doing the hobbies that are actually going to bring me joy, fill me back up so that I can be 100% at my job.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so, as you were talking, I could hear listeners say, what does that have to do with a marketing plan? Well, a couple things. The biggest thing, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you say, I'll make it up, I want to be at the gym every day for an hour. Well, those are 5 hours of a week. You can't be seeing patients. So it gets to the numbers, right? You have 35 hours instead of 40 hours available to see patients. Is that enough to get you at whatever the revenue goal is? And, I tell you, I've been asked before, I need a marketing plan. Great. How much do you want to grow? I don't know. Well, then, there's no point in putting a marketing plan responds to a growth target.
Yes.
It's a small plan for a small target, kind of, sort of, and a large plan for a large target. And yeah, we need a marketing plan. Okay, what's the growth goal? I don't know. I'll take your
I,
money, but it's a waste. It's a waste. Give me a target and let's talk about right. You need it. So
And
is one
once
of
you
the
have that target, then you can start to develop the plan and the turn by turn directions to actually get there. How
correct.
much media presence do we need to have?
Yeah.
Is our SEO actually working? Is from the side of things that I do, it's really more about building that referral base from
Mm-hmm.
providers, as well as patients, community members, anybody who might know you. How
Yeah.
do you develop that personal brand that's going to convert a patient or a potential person with a problem
Yeah.
into an actual patient?
Yeah.
And then how do you get them there? And how do you get them to sing your praises so that they continue sending people to you, so you don't have to invest as much time and or money
Yeah.
into other conventional strategies for marketing?
Right. Right. And you even hit on a couple of other things. People, the reflex of marketing is really promotion and advertising. That's what people are, they're the words they're using, but they understate what marketing can do. Because you just hit it. What if you needed, I'll make it up, $100 of growth, but you could figure out that 50 of it could come from your current patient base, either through referrals or through appropriately suggesting other treatments, whatever it is. A dollar's a dollar. It doesn't always have to come from, convincing some stranger on the street to choose you when they're looking. But yeah, that's all missed without a growth target. So what else do you see separates good from bad marketing plans in your experience?
The premise with which they go into marketing. And what I mean by that is when I think of the word marketing or sales, because marketing opens the door, it's really the education piece that
Mhm.
helps close the sale, which in a physician's case, it's converting them into a paying patient.
Mhm.
And uh, and then if it's a specialist, potentially following a treatment plan recommendation for surgery.
Mhm.
When I have yet to talk to a doc that is like, I love sales. I'm
Yeah.
super confident in this. I know how to close. Those are not words that are in their
You know.
vocabulary ever,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
usually when I say the word sales, what do you think of? Oh, used car
Yeah.
sales.
Pushy. I don't need this. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
this really
Yes.
negative connotation. Well, if that's what is going on subconsciously, the way that we think about something
Mhm.
actually projects a certain energy
Mhm.
that people experience as our presence. And
Mhm.
when you probably met somebody who you're just like, I kind of got a weird feeling about this person. Don't really know why, I can't put my finger on it, or I don't like them,
Yeah.
or I want nothing to do with them, versus the ones where you're like, man, I really feel a connection here.
Mhm.
Really feel like they care. I really feel like they're wanting what's best.
Mhm.
Well, what we're focused on, either consciously or subconsciously, is
Mhm.
what other people experience of us when we go into those
Yeah.
meetings. That
Yeah.
can come through on camera. And so if you're doing an ad as part of your marketing plan or a social media post,
Mhm.
that same energy gets carried into the message that we actually deliver.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're coming into it saying, sales is really just an education process. It's helping people identify that they have a problem that I can actually help them fix. And I
Mhm.
love being able to help make my patients better
Yeah.
or whatever problem you're solving.
Yeah.
And it's identifying what is it about me, what I do, why I do it,
Mhm.
that I can communicate in a way that's going to show that both verbally and non-verbally.
Yeah.
Because nonverbal communication is the majority of our communication.
Mhm.
How do I actually create this message in a way that's going to convert either a referral into my practice or a patient who choose to come to see me and then continue to follow the treatment plan that I've
Yeah.
recommended?
Yeah. And you know what? Underlying a lot of that is you just have to believe in what you're selling, which
Mhm.
means if you're a little, now, true, you could be skittish about the sales process, but if you don't believe in what you're selling, if you don't think it's good, that's going to show and it's going to make you a bit nervous. It's more than just technique. It's more than just practice. You have to buy into it. Um, yeah. And so any other differences you see between good and bad? I mean, one thing I see is um, they pick only one thing. Like we just need more social media, or we need more of this, we need more of that. Hey, what do you need me for? Like, but these are the conversations I have. Like, why aren't you doing that now? I mean, go for it, give it a shot. But it's just, I don't know, like the analysis, like the numeric, that's sort of the numbers analysis, and then the why do you think that would work? They don't really, I don't know. It's just like shot in the dark, one off. But that's what I see. What do you see? We could just riff on bad marketing plans all day here.
That's one. Well, we'll narrow this down. When have been out on some of the networking or marketing meetings
Mhm.
with docs, it's the ones that go in without a plan. They don't
Mhm.
have a clear message. They
Mhm.
don't know how to communicate what makes them different. And
Mhm.
they think that just showing up means that they're going to get a referral.
Mhm.
The best data that we can get shows that on average, it takes 6 touch points to change a referral pattern with somebody if they've already got an established relationship elsewhere. And so you have to go in with a very specific, tailored message that is designed to make you memorable, because that physician that you're just meeting has probably met 50 other docs within the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
How do you stand out, and how do you help them remember you after you're gone, when they have a patient that they could send you?
Yeah.
And that I think is probably the biggest failure point that I see, is they go in and they're just like everybody else. There's no connection, because they're so worried about making a sale or not coming across as a salesperson, that there's this level of genuineness that's missed, and that they don't have a specific strategy in their messaging to be able to make it an effective meeting.
So patience and technique. Yeah, you've got to
Yes.
be. I didn't get anything from them. Well, right there. Did you give anything to them? Were you patient? Do they know your name? Do they know your last name? Do they remember your last name? Yeah.
Do they remember your name at all?
At
And
all. Yeah.
the other thing too is, after we leave, I'll ask, if I see them, my meeting schedule is usually about once a week is when we'll touch base, and I'll ask them how their last meeting was. And it's like, oh yeah, we had a couple providers come back, and I said, can you tell me any of their names? Most often it's no. And I said, so how likely do you think it is that they remember who you are?
Yeah.
Next step is, let's create a plan to follow up, to touch base, to keep your name in front of them, so that when they do have a patient, if it's today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, you're the first person that they think of, and actually growing a sustainable practice.
Yes, absolutely. So that's one part of it. Another part that you've highlighted is the importance of a great patient experience to keep them coming back. So talk more about that one in terms of, growth without burnout.
Yeah. Referrals can be one of the best ways to minimize the amount of time that you're having to spend on marketing efforts. And so if you're creating an amazing environment that is inviting to patients, we know, stats say most people, if they have a negative experience, they'll tell 7 to 10 people. If they've got a good experience, they'll tell 1 to 3 people.
Yeah.
Well, how do you actually create that experience of where you can flip those numbers, or at least make the number of people that they're talking to as many as what a person who had a negative experience would have?
Yeah.
And that boils down to leadership. How are you leading your practice? And leadership really starts with, how do I first lead myself? Am I being integrous with myself? If I set goals for myself, am I actually achieving them? Or if I tell somebody else I'll do something, I'll do it for them, but I won't do it for me. And how do I lead with integrity and inspire a culture within my team that feeds the patient what they need to feel seen, heard, cared for, so that they'll be sending out glowing reviews even without you asking?
Yeah. Because the one of the many things that people can sniff out super fast is when you say one thing but do another. When what you say and what you do are not the same, it is noticed immediately. And so they have to be the same. You're so right. Otherwise, everybody will see it, say, well, I guess it's double standard. What he or she says is different for them than it is for us. Nobody likes double standards.
No.
Yeah.
That's double standards, definitely not. And back to your initial question, there's so many components that go into, like, how do we really create this environment? What are your workflow processes? If your team is burned out, if they're stressed, if they're frustrated, guess what's coming across to the patient?
Yeah.
Even if the words that they say are perfect, on point, very nice, that negative energy that they're experiencing, you feel it, you sense it. And then it's like, okay, something just seems off with this practice.
Yeah.
I don't really feel truly comfortable there.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How do we address those underlying things that really may not be seen, that make a world of difference?
Yeah.
And you've all experienced that. Like, we've all walked in somewhere where you're just like, I don't know about this place.
Just weird vibe. Yeah.
Just weird vibe.
And that's death. That's a death right there. It's just a weird vibe over there. I don't know. Who do you use? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're thinking of switching ourselves. Just a weird
And
vibe.
what that does too, if they walk into, okay, my first experience is with the person who checks me in. If that person is off, it sets the doc up to already have this level of suspicion from the patient
Yeah.
of, can I even trust this person?
Mhm.
And what actually drives them to follow the recommendations that are being made to improve their health?
Yeah.
Key is trust. You
Yeah.
have to create trust, and
Yeah.
trust also from your level of safety that you can create for them by making them feel like everybody's here to support them. Everybody's encouraging. They're happy to be there.
Yeah.
When we experience people who are happy and really loving their environment, it shows.
Yeah.
And automatically helps us reduce that resistance to whatever recommendations are being made, because it lowers our skepticism,
Yeah.
because we already have a sense of trust. And
Yeah.
there's so much psychology that goes into practice building that physicians are definitely never taught. I wasn't taught this in any of my leadership training. And it wasn't until I started seeing all of these problems and working with patients, I'm like, okay, so the surface level stuff doesn't, it helps, but not immensely, not to the
Mhm.
point that we need to. Like, we're not making massive shifts in patient satisfaction or referral growth rates. Why? Oh, because of all of the underlying things that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
And that's where we dive into first, so that once we can set those foundational pieces up, then
Mhm.
once you pile in the strategies and the actual tactics,
Mhm.
that's when things really take off.
Yes. Yes. You know, it's so cliche, but that's because it's true. You only get one chance to make a first impression. We had a weekend in New York City, family thing. We check into the
Oh,
hotel and it was a parade of just negative stuff. You're wrong. We can't, like in the first 3 or 4 hours. And I'm telling you what, it didn't matter how good anybody else was. It just didn't matter. It just left a mark. And I'm like, I don't know. That employee was great, but the brand, I don't know. Like it just created such a bad, it was so much, but it's true, you know, and it takes so much to recover from a bad impression. But when it's the first impression, it takes double or triple, whatever it is, you know. Yeah, and so it's just got to be there. And then the other thing is, you know, when you're saying, listeners, please remember your patients have a lot of choices. I'll just pick on our dentist. There's 3 other dental practices in the same small building that our dentist is in, and he gets it. Like he understands. Um, he knows, and you should too. So these bad impressions, everything LynAnn's talking about, it's just too easy to switch. You think differently, but it's just too easy to switch. So why find out? Um, yeah, so that's the importance of building a great patient experience, because you want them to come back. You would like referrals, you'd like reviews, you'd like all those things, but you got to put in the work first. So on the referral part, it,
add to that list.
yeah, go ahead.
I said, is there anything else that you would add to that list of things that you've seen really make or break them?
It just seems like it's a lot of the little things, like stacking up a bunch of little things, you know. Um, be nice when you walk in the door, take people on time. If you're going to be late, it happens, just tell them. There's another thing. I mean, I learned the hard way that if I ever need a skin doctor, I need to be the first appointment in the morning or the first one after lunch, because after that, but I learned that the hard way. And they looked at me the first time after an hour and a half when I said I need to reschedule, like I was some sort of idiot for not knowing that already. You know, thanks. Now I'm double making sure I never come back because you made me feel like I was an idiot, you know? Um, when somebody who does something every day looks at me and goes, what are you, how, how epic of a moron are you for not knowing that already? I'm like, I'll tell you how epic of a moron I am. I've never done this before. Why would I know
Exactly.
that? You know?
The things that we do on a daily basis that are so commonplace. Oh, I
Yeah,
see patients all the time. Yeah, we run behind. Well, to that one patient who hasn't been to the doctor in 8 years, it's basically their first time ever. They don't
right.
know.
They don't
And
know.
that should not be the expectation of course, the doctor's going to be late, or of
Yeah,
course, the team's going to be running behind. No,
yeah,
apologies go a long way. Just
yeah,
acknowledging what isn't working, or if you know that something's off, acknowledge it, call it out in front, because that takes away that level of distrust.
yeah,
And again, feel like, oh, you care.
yeah. Yeah, I had that recently. Something 30 minutes afterwards. Like, oh, something happened. Could have told me. I mean, you could have told me. Um, what was another one? Oh, Disney. Talk about the first impression. Disney parks, I think, have this right. They're trained, it's beaten into them. Every guest is treated like it's their first time here. Like
Mm.
just make sure, because the first is great, and just treat them like they don't know a thing. They don't know how anything works. what they're supposed to go or whatever, and it works. It's one of the many reasons why they're so good at this. But I can't think of anything else I would add offhand before we leave. Anything else now that we've been talking about this? Anything else you would add about the great patient experience?
Uh, I mean, really just to help your patient or help your staff recognize and become more aware of the way that they carry themselves, the way that they speak, the
Mhm.
way that they are engaging with other employees, especially if it's visible, but
Yeah.
especially the nurse's station. Like if you have a larger practice or
Yeah.
a practice that has a nurse's station in the middle, helping remind your staff of how important it is to not have side conversations that do not relate to work is because as much as we like to think those doors are soundproof and that they can't hear conversations, they
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
I've actually read patient reviews uh, from
Yeah.
people when I was, because I actually used to monitor all of our patient reviews for the docs that I supported. I would see them say, I heard your nurses, instead of coming to see me while I was sitting there for 15 minutes, they're talking about their weekend or they're talking about this or that. And it's like, even though that nurse's or MA or whoever it
Hmm.
was assigned to a completely different doctor and wouldn't have seen that patient, the
They don't.
perception is they have time to go talk about their weekend, but they don't have time to come and see me on time.
Yes. Yes. I actually thought of another one, consistency.
Yeah.
So don't you change things as necessity dictates, but when you go to the same place, think about it. You go to the grocery store every week, it always works the same way. My number one beef with Costco was when they would move everything around. At least that was my perception. When our kids were babies and I'd have to go find the diapers, I swear to God, they were in a different aisle every time. They were always in the back. I understood why they were in the back, but they were never in the same place twice, and it was maddening. Don't do that. There's a reason why everything's in the grocery store is in the same place every time because you know where to go, and it just why make people think harder than you want them to, than they need to? Just everything, just have it work the same way every time, and they don't have to think hard about it. They're more compliant with your processes and they're happier. They just are. Nobody ever sees it. You want to find out how unhappy you can make somebody? Change it up every time and don't tell them. Yeah. Just make them think hard and go, yeah, I don't even know how you would do that in a practice, but if you really want to find out, go ahead. So consistency is key. Um, So you've mentioned referrals a few times. I've mentioned it a few times. There's a difference between sort of the happenstance referral and like a referral system or machine. Big difference. How do you build that? Like, we don't have to go into, massive sort of from soup to nuts, but some, principles of a good referral to the point where you can call it a machine and how to kind of make it work.
Yeah. So we actually have a specific process for this
Hmm.
that we unfortunately don't have time to dive into
Yeah.
all of it today, but I'll
If we
give.
did, then anybody would do it, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, there's clearly a reason for having the full boat here, but we're not going to go that far.
So first and foremost, the it starts with identifying who could actually be a good referral target. I was just had a conversation last week with a doc, and he said, "Oh, I have no problem identifying people to go out to and meet with." And I said, "How do you do that?" And he said, "Well, I just have my team Google it, and we come up with a list of everybody who's there." If you don't have access to data, I mean, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
However, there is so much data that is available to be able to identify this is actually the practice or provider who has my patients, my ideal patients.
Hmm.
And again, it starts back with that clarity on who is my ideal patient and what do I really want to be doing?
Hmm.
Because a general neurosurgeon, well, you may actually really love cervical spine,
Hmm.
but you're getting brain tumors
Right.
and that's not what you want. So identifying who has your specific patient, um, looking at the data, and then coming up with that plan and message around what is my personal brand? And then
Hmm.
how does my personal brand tie into my practice? And how do we make my practice have that brand awareness that people know, like, and trust us,
Hmm.
which is where the specific marketing plans and
Hmm.
structures come into place, right? And then after you have that message, what is my follow-up strategy? How do I stay top of mind? And how does it not take every second of my day outside of me taking care of patients to not stay on top of that? And
Yeah.
that's where, again, like another process that can really cut down time on that, that
Mm-hmm.
we love to help our clients with.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, how do you create that specific, amazing world-class experience when your patients come in, so that they not only go back to the referring provider and sing your praises, but they're telling their friends, their family, posting review. And with the reviews, patients will do it when they're asked. How do I
Shocker.
create a
Shocker.
bridge to
Yes.
them
Yes.
without feeling like that's a salesman and I don't want to do it, so I don't. And
Yeah.
then I wonder why the only that I have on my website are the, 2 patients out of 100 or 500 that may have had a bad experience. And
Yeah.
it's balanced with the ones that love me and would sing my praises and that I really truly helped, but they didn't even know how to leave a review or that it even matters.
Yeah.
And so how do I ask that question in a way to get them to do it, and then also,
Yeah.
build that referral machine? And another point in there is, how do I leverage the relationships that I have at work, in the community, and elsewhere, to be able to create, I like to call it my mini marketing team, so that I
Mm-hmm.
have everybody around me going out and singing my praises, marketing for me, so that I don't have to do it as much.
Yeah. Man, you've hit so many good points. And there's not a lot of cost really in anything that you just said. There's some time cost, but you're going to be spending time anyway. It's funny about reviews. We do reviews for a lot of clients. We have a whole bunch of clients. That's all we do. That's all they need. It's all they want. It's fine. Um, but it's funny, the happy people, your happy patients just never seem to think to praise you. But the unhappy people find all sorts of time, don't they? All on their own. So you're right. You have to ask, and you have to ask the same person more than once. People need reminders, just like the rest of life, because out of sight, out of mind is a very powerful force. Um, we do newsletters for a bunch of our clients, and that's the reason why. It's to communicate some good information, helps with the brand, but it's also so that in their inbox they see our clients' logos once a month, and that's the victory. Oh yeah, them. There it is. Right. So it's a built-in touch point. And if they open the newsletter, even better. But yeah, it's just a lot of, and it's all built on, um, again, go back to the first question about a marketing plan. If half of your new dollar requirement came from your current patients' relationships, it's a lot cheaper and a lot more effective. Because a patient who refers a friend to you, the chances that that friend is a good patient, good fit, is higher than some stranger off the street. Not that you shouldn't try to get both, or maybe you don't need both, but it just everything's better. That referral source, that provider down the street gets to know you. Oh, that's a good fit. It just gets better. Everything it's, but it takes work, right? So this referral machine, it's not built overnight. I mean, one principle you said earlier was you got 6 touch points minimum, and I'm sure it varies a little bit, but it's not a lot less than that. Any other like core principles you could kind of give to us about a referral machine, no matter how well, no matter what else goes into it? I know there's a lot else, but even one, because you could have 6 touch points, but suck at it, right? And get nowhere. So anything
Yeah.
else?
I think where I see a lot of docs go wrong is, while they care, it's not reflected in their actions and their communication and their follow-up.
Mm,
They actually do care about taking care of patients. That's why they went into medicine. Most other physicians do as well.
hmm
But how do I show that referring provider or somebody who might refer to me that I care about them,
mm,
that I care about making their patients better and making them look like the hero?
hmm
And that's something that I've seen make massive shifts of when we change some of the messaging and the follow-up strategy, especially, to include something that actually highlights, this is why I do this.
hmm
And part of it is because I want to make you shine.
hmm
And a lot of docs aren't comfortable saying something like that. So we'll craft it very unique to the way that they speak.
Yeah.
When you tie it back and you give that provider a reason of like, oh, this is how this is actually going to help me be a better doctor, or in the eyes of my patients, which helps
hmm
me practice,
hmm
I'm in. Who can I send and how?
Yeah.
Usually the next question after they'll insert their specific messages is,
Right.
so tell me, how do I refer to you?
hmm
Love them sharing
Yeah.
that.
How do I
That
get
is
more of
a
this?
huge win.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the business side, right? I mean, it's appropriate to say, you're right, I need to look good in front of my patients too. And most of that is the clinical care, but not all. And if I can add some value some other way, in an appropriate way, why wouldn't I? But you're right, they just don't, it just seems to be in this discomfort zone that they have to get over. Um, Man, we have covered a lot in not such a long period of time. And there's a lot more we could do, as we said. But before we wrap up on this New Year's Eve 2024, um, is there anything you think we should have gone to or covered or talked about that we didn't?
I mean, there's so many things that we could dive
I
into because
know.
it's as much as we would like to say, oh, this is, just do this step, do this step, do this step.
Yeah.
There's so much more that goes into it if you're actually going to be effective. And
Yeah.
so it's really, you know, a very long conversation, but
Yes.
something that anybody who's watching this, a place to start to make those changes
Hmm.
is first, identify your goals and include your why. Like,
Hmm.
why are you doing this? What do you really want? And I'm not just saying this is the number of patients I want. That's definitely a metric that you need to have.
Hmm.
But what are my other key performance indicators that help me know that I'm actually making progress on this plan and this goal?
Hmm.
That needs to include your life outside of work, because you are 70% more likely to have a thriving professional life and professional work environment if
Hmm.
you're also having a thriving personal life, whether that's hobbies, personal relationships, whatever that looks like to you. But getting really clear on that and then making sure that there's time blocked to take care of
Yeah.
you, to master your life outside of work, because we do better for those that we serve when we first take care of ourselves.
Which brings us back full circle because you can't do any of that if you're burning out, right? So,
Right.
yeah, there it is, full circle. Perfect. And I think you answered the second. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, one other interesting study that had come out was called the happiness advantage. And they actually found that people who are in a positive state of mind as compared to negative or even a neutral state are up to 31% more productive, 37% better at sales. And this particular study is really interesting to me, is that physicians were 19% faster at determining an accurate diagnoses when they're in a positive state of mind. So doing things that bring you joy and being able to focus on what you're grateful for
So
can go a long way from a neurochemical perspective.
joy as a reason for efficiency. That's a new one.
Yes.
Makes a ton of sense when you say it out loud. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Um, and we kind of hit the second wrap-up question, which is where can somebody get started? Something, something simple, something immediate. You hit one, but if there's anything else you'd like to add to that, please do.
So I would love to offer your listeners a free resource that is called
Great.
the High Performance Indicator, which is an assessment that you can take. And it really helps you identify what areas of your life need to be focused on
Hmm.
to improve every other area of your life, because everything ties together. And that's what people don't understand. They focus on, okay, I'll go after this professional success, but it has to be at the cost of this. No, it actually doesn't. And
Hmm.
when we start to build things out to where you're able to elevate all of the areas of your life, personal
Hmm.
and professional, health, wellness, spirituality, all of those pieces,
Hmm.
we actually see the one thing that they were really focused on initially accelerate at remarkable speed. And so that's a free gift that we'd love to offer your
Great.
listeners. Healthcareelevation.com/HPI. It's normally $97. We'll give it to you for free. And also, we do have something called the Freedom Practice Institute that is coming up. It's a live 2-day event in
Ah,
Austin. And this year is specifically for neurosurgery, but it is designed to go through step-by-step process of some of the things that we were talking about, as well as others, to help you really accelerate your leadership, your
mhm.
practice, and protect your own well-being and positive personal relationships.
Perfect. Thank you. So we will get all the info we need into the show notes for this episode so that if somebody wants to access either one of them, they now have another way to do so.
Awesome.
Perfect. Great. LynAnn, thank you for carving out time on, I know I've said New Year's Eve a bunch of times here, but New Year's Eve to enlighten us here. Burnout is not an absolute. It is not an inevitable. It can be tackled with growth at the same time. So thank you for coming on Practice Care and telling us about it.
Thank you for having me. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and a couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you're someone like LynAnn or us and you serve private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself, either way, you've got some experience on the business side of private practice you think other private practice owners would benefit from. We'd love you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. In the show notes for LynAnn's episode, and every episode, there's a link, a couple of clicks, it's super quick. Tell us what's on your mind so we get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, you got to subscribe to Practice Care. Practice Care, one word, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you listen to podcasts, we're there. We do a new episode every week. Subscribe so you could stay up to date. Thanks very much. Happy New Year. And until next time.